There is bread, bigger than your head in the store, in the store. There is bread, just like lumps of lead in the quartermaster's store.
She was a miserable girl and poor, with no money in her pocket, but now she travelled to France by the side of this clear lake, and she hoped that they would be safe here on the middle of a summer's morning in 1916. She was swimming. She was a good swimmer, but she travelled with a family to get away from the war in France. And on this rainy summer's morning, the water was splashing on the top of the lake. She knew that there were places that she should not go, where the army would be, where they would put trips and trap wires and sausages. She could smell it in the air. She knew that there was going to be food. She was poor. She thought to herself, I could go closer. And as she got closer and she looked and she was drying herself, she could still feel as cold as an icicle, and she was sneaking like a snake closer to where she saw all of the army. But the smell of the food, of the frying food, was driving her crazy. And then she saw the tripwire and she screamed. She looked at it. She'd been going through all of the trees, sneaking like a snake. And as she jumped over it, she walked towards the soldiers. She couldn't understand the way that they spoke. She didn't know whether it was English or it was German, but she knew that she did not want them to be hurt. She pointed as much as she could towards the tripwire to make sure that they wouldn't get caught in this trap. And those men smiled at her. You're a good girl. You're a good girl. You've saved us. You've saved us all. What would you like in all of this world? And they could not stop seeing her staring at the food. Are you hungry? Are you really hungry? She did not know what they were saying, but as they pointed towards that food, she nodded her head. They gave her more food than she had eaten in nearly 3 months. Enough for herself, her father, her mother, her sister and her brother. When she lived after the First World War, she grew older. She would tell her own children about how she had saved some English soldiers by the side of a lake in France, where the water was clear.
I've not brought my specs with me. I have not brought my specs with me. Clogs on cobblestones, cotton mill army. We spin, we weave, we sew and we make. Stitching summer blighty into every uniform. Cotton mill army keeps the world safe.
Everyone would say that he was his father's son because he watched his father shout. And he liked the fact that he made all of the workers, the boys and girls the same age as him, scared of him. He was a strong boy with a mean streak and a look in his eyes that you did not want to see more than once. Oh, he was rich. But now inside of the mill manager's office, as the mill manager's son, he was shouting, work faster. Don't you know that there's a war going on? And on this day, the 1st of February in 1918, the war had raged for full 3.5 years. While his father was busy tending to all of the cloth and material, he looked inside of his father's diary. He thought that his father would be proud of him. He was so like him, the way he shouted and screamed and yelled and bawled. But when he read and recognised his own name, as his father wrote about him as being lazy and angry, and he makes me fume. I can feel the blood boil in my veins. He did not wait for a second. He reached inside of the strong box where his father kept his money and his keys. I shall teach him a lesson. Lazy and angry. I'll give him lazy and angry. His father, when he found that his own son had stolen these things, he placed his hand into a hard fist and thought that he would beat this boy until he beat some sense inside of him. But he couldn't believe it. There was a commotion by the side of the mill. He could hear happy voices. He could hear people shouting. He could see his own son standing there, and people were clapping him on the back. In spite of his father, he decided to spend the money on giving food to the workers. He was going to treat them right. If his father did not like that, then it was too much like bad luck for him. As he died, many years later, there was a bowling green that was named after him. Everyone thought of him as such a good man, such a kind man, a warm man. But what they did not know was he only did it so that he could spite his father. A bowling green named after someone who was so mean.
Clogs on cobblestones, cotton mill army, we spin, we weave, we sew, and we make.
Stitching summer plenty into every uniform, cotton mill army keeps the world safe.
From a day little Lancashire town, a boy had sailed away across the briny spray to toil in USA, when American girls gathered round and sought his company.
He was a determined man, strong from all of the work that he'd done inside of the mill, and he'd come far across the water to live by the side of a rapid raging river. He was a fighter, a scrapper. He would fight for what it was that he wanted, but he did not want to take part in this war. The rippling river was starting to freeze over, and he thought that when he came across the sea, he would find peace in this place. But when he spoke with his thick Lancastrian accent, everyone would point at him and call him a coward running away from the army. So quicker than a heartbeat, he had learned how to speak with an American accent. The streets were deep with snow, and earlier that morning he'd been through all of the town with his lantern to light all of the lamps. It reminded him of when he was working in the cotton mills. But he was a strong man, a determined man. He was not going to be forced to join an army that he did not believe in. By his side, he had his old rusting knife. He'd had it for a long time. It had been given to him by his father, and from his father before, a knife that he'd used in the cotton mills, and he'd heard that America had now declared war on Germany. They'd sunk the Lusitania. This was not going to be tolerated. The Americans were going to join in this great war, a war that was going to end all wars. As all of the men were going past him, he couldn't stop. He couldn't stop his heart starting to beat in time with their footsteps. At first it was quiet, but as the snow became crushed, it became louder. On a roll call, many years later, people found his name there, fighting on the side of the Americans. Someone who had come from Lancashire, lived in America, but could not stand it anymore. The taunts, the pointing, and even though he did not want to fight, he had fought and died bravely on a field surrounded by Americans.
Day by day he kept plodding away, and to his task he stuck, till by a stroke of luck, a pain vein he struck, as he wrote her to tell her that he would cross the sea. He'd say, "There's only one girl for me. She's a lassie from Lancashire, just a lassie from Lancashire. She's the lassie I love so dear, oh so dear. Though she dresses in clogs and shawl, she's the prettiest of them all. None could be fairer or rarer than Sarah, my lass from Lancashire. She's a lassie from Lancashire, just a lassie from Lancashire. She's the lassie I love so dear, oh so dear. Though she dresses in clogs and shawl, she's the prettiest of them all. None could be fairer or rarer than Sarah, my lass from Lancashire.